Oh, welcome.
What's
Great. How
going
you doing?
on? I'm doing well. Happy Friday with a PH.
Great. That's yeah, awesome. Glad you could join us. Is this your first time on Spaces?
It is. It is. It's a brave new world. I love it. And yeah, I don't care if you
All right.
record it. You should never say anything that you're afraid of being replayed.
That's a good
All
one.
right. Perfect. All right. Cool. So we will record this and make it available on YouTube or podcast format later. Awesome. Oh, Alan is here as well. Perfect.
Alan, what's going on?
Hold on. He's still connecting. There he is.
Hey,
Alan.
how are you doing?
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Nice extra surprise.
Yeah, no worries. I probably got 30, 45 minutes and then I get to scramble to the airport. But I am wanted to jump on and always appreciate the opportunity, as Randall does, to talk to everyone out there who has an interest in what we're up to.
Okay, great. Awesome. So, I've been talking to your company for a few months before all this happened with DWAC. And, at the time, we weren't so interested in presenting this as what we call VIP picture community, but things may have changed. A lot of things have happened. Obviously, you got that interest from what happened with DWAC. You took advantage of it. You raised a ton of money. We're looking under the hood, learning more about the company. So it's just a great opportunity to talk about this and gain some clarity for retail investors. So, if I could just start, the number one thing on a lot of people's minds still, and I know you can't talk about the future in terms of DWAC or the Trump thing. So I'm not going to ask you to talk about the future, but if you could talk about the past a little bit, just to open it up. Apparently you did do some work for the Trump campaign a year ago or during the election. Can you just clarify for people what you guys did or what your relationship was in the past for the Trump campaign?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And definitely we're very open and we've filed for quite some time relative to our past work. We're very proud that we were able to create the Trump-Pence 2020 mobile application portfolio on Apple iOS and Google Android. So historically, if you go all the way back to when we started Phunware, most people never knew who we were, but we were the brand and the software and the infrastructure behind basically the largest brands on the planet in media, entertainment, and sports. And if you remember, that's kind of where mobile adopted a big passion vertical. So NFL mobile was Phunware. NASCAR was Phunware. Circuit of the Americas for Formula One was Phunware. The Summer and Winter Olympic Games was Phunware. We basically focused on learning how to build out our platform and all the features specific to the largest venues and the largest stages in the world. And for us, that turned out to be the top 10 live events of the world. So that's why we ended up doing things like the Men's and Women's World Cup. We continued that with things like WrestleMania from WWE, the Oscars, the Grammys. And then when we started building out the world's first OTT application portfolios, the first one in the world was actually WWE Network with World Wrestling Entertainment. If you remember back, they had 0% of their revenues were digital. We took them on mobile. And it was the first time any brand in history had ever gone directly to consumers, bypassing all the traditional distribution outlets. And that allowed us to then start doing a lot of work where we built out CBS Mobile, the CW Network, Turner Classic Movies, and we just kind of rotated through everything. More recently, people knew us from Fox News, Fox Now, Fox Sports, NBC Sports Live Extra, E, and on and on and on. But with the Trump campaign, we had a unique opportunity where we said, why can't politics, independent of the political parties, so forget Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, we're a software company. We have a ton of hardware now. We license to our customers. It's not like when I go to a Ritz-Carlton, they ask me my political party and see if I can stay at the hotel. They say, welcome, Mr. Natowski. Glad to have you here at the Ritz. In the same way that, Michael Dell sells hardware computers, Tim Cook sells iPhones. They don't say, what party are you in? So what we like to do is to have the most stringent, high value environments in the world on the biggest stage of the world and showcase how great our software and infrastructure is. So I had met Brad Parscale actually through a referral out of Asia while I was about 4 years ago during the last cycle. I was spending about 3 days per city, Singapore, Tokyo, Bangkok, Beijing, Seoul, Taipei, Manila, and on and on and on. And I met a ton of people doing early blockchain, early crypto. And we were unique because we were the only real company doing this versus projects. And one of the people I met on those road shows was a prominent CEO. And he said, hey, I know somebody, I think they need help on mobile. Would you and Luan be willing to meet with them in Palo Alto when you get back to the US? And I said, sure. So we did that meeting. We were invited to Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, met the American-made media consultants group, and then we had to compete. They were very far down the road with Salesforce, obviously a very, very large company. And we were asked if we would consider, making a bid. And after we walked through our whole history in mobile, the campaign decided, wow, based on merit, nothing else, no relationships, no connections. I knew nobody in politics. I think Randall could probably say the same. Our whole team knows nobody in the world of politics. We've been instruments of public policy. Obviously, Veterans Day was yesterday, and Randall and I both served in the military. And so when we went through that, we went in on merit, and we went in on our capabilities and the proven track record with the biggest brands on the planet. And I think they saw the vision of, wow, what would happen if you took something like you do for the Olympic Games, or like you do for the NFL with the Super Bowl and the draft and the combine, and you took all that capability and you brought it to a presidential election and a community of constituents and advocates. And that was really the genesis of it. So we had to displace Salesforce. We won head-to-head on merit. And then we're very, very proud that we delivered the most advanced application in the history of the world for politics. And that would allow live events. It would allow merchandising. It would allow political donations, communications. And we took everything we learned in every other vertical and applied it there. And it was very exciting. The only bad part was really that there was COVID, and a lot of the on-site venue opportunities that we could have done with traditional rallies and things that happen in election, we didn't really get to show off all our location-based services and all the other things we could have done, just because there was so many shutdowns and lockdowns. But that's really the history of it. It had nothing to do with data. It had nothing to do with media. The whole contract was for us to build, manage, evolve, and maintain that which you would download on iOS and Android across all the different devices, including the client-side development, the user experience, and the entire back end at scale. And the proudest thing I'll close with on this, and Randall can dive in, is honestly, the only system in the world that wasn't hacked was our stuff. So you remember when Twitter got hacked. We're on Twitter right now. Obviously it got hacked last year, and people were acting like they were Elon Musk and Bill Gates and putting out all these messages. Everyone tried. I think we had about 3 million hack attempts every minute on our infrastructure while we supported Trump, 3 million. And thankfully, we had gone through the Olympic Games, the NFL, and all these very stringent environments around the world at scale. And we're very proud that while websites were hacked, Twitter was hacked, everything was hacked, we knew we were a target, and we had a team, and we withstood all of it, which was great.
Great, awesome. Thank you for that background. And by the way, thank you so much for your service, both of you, Randall and Alan, to the country. So, do you, because I'm trying to get a handle on what your focus is. I'd spoken privately to Randall a couple weeks ago, and my understanding was, in terms of app development, you really focus on this one enterprise app for smart cities, smart hospitals, and smart workplaces that are kind of white labeled out. But you just described something where you may be willing to go and create an app for anyone. Is that still part of your business model going forward?
I'll take that one. So it is, so creating an app for anyone is a loaded, term. So we license software. So the same platform that powered, the Trump application is the exact same platform that powers a hospital application. It's the exact same platform that would power a smart workplace solution. That's why we spent so much time and so much money building what we built. And that's really a huge competitive advantage. You know, back in our digital agency days when we were doing the passion verticals, you know, you're talking 30%, you know, gross margins. Now we can deploy a feature-rich mobile application portfolio on iOS and Android at 75% gross margins, which is, you know, should be important to any shareholder who's looking at investing in us as we kind of become more like a SaaS business. And so it doesn't matter what industry vertical it is, we can actually serve all. And we're not building a mobile application from scratch. We're just licensing software, and that allows us to deploy it faster and allows us to actually integrate, you know, because they're pre-integrated, more features that really drive that engagement paradigm that we're actually talking about. You know, how do you contextually engage your customers so that you're not just consuming content, you're actually reaching them and getting them involved with, you know, your brand or whatever you're trying to do, whether it's a hospital operation or, you know, a guest experience for a hotel. All of it is, you know, designed around engagement.
Okay, great. So I want to stay on this theme a little bit about, you know, what really is your focus, because I got the app development part, and it sounds like you have a solution to really scale that, you know, at good profit margins. But you have this light technology buyout. You have this focus on Phuncoin and Phun token, and you bought a lot of Bitcoin recently, talking about the blockchain ecosystem yesterday in your conference call. I have a hard time putting that together with the app development. What's going on here? What's the future of Phunware, or how does all this connect to each other?
Yeah, let me take that one. So the core of all this is that we have a vision to have a Phunware ID for every human being on the planet that has a device touching a network through their favorite applications, brands, and venues that happen to run Phunware software or use our infrastructure. Full stop. And if we can do that successfully through a combination of software deployments and mobile apps, software deployments from the cloud, hardware deployments that represent nodes on a decentralized networks and a data economy around the world, and all things in between across Apple iOS, Google Android, smartphones, tablets, wearables, smart television, in-car infotainment, we kind of become a little bit of like a mobile overlay to the planet. And why we think this is so important is that when you look at a lot of enterprise software companies, you know, Adobe, Microsoft, Salesforce, even Amazon now to a big extent, the reality is that all of those software companies now have a massive hardware component. They may call it the cloud, but those are data centers full of tons of hardware. Amazon AWS is a ton of hardware in the cloud. And what you find is that, you know, Microsoft has a massive hardware business to go along with the software, because the hardware becomes a distribution vehicle for that software. Much like an iPhone or a Google Android smartphone is a device as a distribution channel for that software. And so when you think about things, on the hardware side, you had people like Apple and Dell that started purely in hardware, and then they started adding all the software and services to that over time. So this is kind of a natural evolution. It wouldn't have been natural in the first few years of our business, but it's natural now that we've been around for, you know, more than 12 years, going on 13 in February. And what we needed to do is to say, look, when you think of the technology vertical, we want you to think that there's hardware, software, firmware, and of course, Phunware. And we wanted to have not only everything you need to succeed on mobile to help people engage and manage and monetize their audiences and communities around the world, we specifically needed to find distribution that would allow us to not just hit business to business and business to government, which is where kind of enterprise software and 1 to 5 year SaaS hits, but we needed a conduit directly to consumers. And Light allowed us to add 4 key personas of who uses computers. And I'll really say 5, but the 4 everyone talks about are gamers, streamers, traders when you're dealing with the markets, and folks who do cryptocurrency mining. The last bastion is what I just call personal productivity, where someone wants a really high-end machine to do whatever it is they need to do on their computing platform. And for us, those are just decentralized nodes globally. And as time rolls out, we will be able to put a decentralized suite of offerings, upsell and cross-sell, and be able to reach our core vision, which is to get all those Phunware IDs, which we have more than 15 billion of now and counting. And we want to take all the data, which we have about a petabyte now, growing at about 5 terabytes a day. And we want to have fully verified app users, fully KYC'd people on one side who are in control of their own identity. They have personal sovereignty of their digital ID and all of their data, and they can choose venue by venue, app by app, and brand by brand, what they share, what they don't share, what they're comfortable doing, what kind of experience they want with that brand or that venue or that app. And what we want to do is to stop having the world's population harvested and exploited the way they are with Facebook and Twitter and Snap and Google and everybody else who treats them like the product, extracts all the monetary value out of them, and really violates their privacy. And what we think is that by having an opted-in group of people around the world that say, I'm in charge of me, if you want to engage me, I'll tell you what my interests are, I'll tell you about me, but you need to provide the incentive for me to voluntarily opt in. And when I do and get included in these audiences and segments within a customer data platform, then you're going to compensate me. And that's really why crypto had to come in. So all of PhunCoin and PhunToken and PhunWallet, those are a means to have a loyalty and rewards program that allows you to plug in and on one side reward people with PhunCoin for their personal information and demographic data, and on the other side for people to have PhunToken to reward them for their contextual engagement, their behavior, their activities. And we think that crypto is important because it's easier to transact, it's easier to move that crypto into somebody's wallet, give them the accrued benefit in their own custody. And we think that that's just a win-win. The reason we added blockchain is because then we have a global, open, transparent, and immutable record of every interaction between audiences of people and brands, and nobody can dispute what that interaction was and what the financial transaction was that occurred with it. And that's the level of transparency and control that we think is important. I'll defer the whole, like, why do you buy Bitcoin and what do you do with that? That's more of a corporate treasury decision and store of value and protection from inflation issue. But that's the core genesis of how we tie the hardware distribution platforms with all of the software, with all the services that we do in a coherent way for what we're trying to accomplish.
All right, that sounds like a big vision. Can you give me like a just practical example now? I have a hard time understanding. Let's say Carrier is one of your customers for this smart building solution. Does that have anything to do with what you just described? And if it does, can you give me a specific example of how that ties into PhunID?
I can take that one, Alan. And Ben, you might want to make sure Jared's not getting murdered, because it sounds like he got murdered in the kitchen with a candlestick. So, really a lot of this, and Alan, I had a really great time. Alan's in Miami right now. We have a lot of great customers and strategic meetings down there. But we actually, Kathy Mayer, a member of our board, used to be the CMO, CDO of Carnival. And a lot of this we riffed on with her. And so if you think about Mass, our multi-screen as a service platform designed around engagement, forget about blockchain for a second. She wanted to use that for Carnival to sell more excursions. And we basically said, all right, well, how do you sell excursions today? Like, well, pamphlets, just print signage, and, maybe word of mouth if we have extra crew members that can walk around and ask people if they want to go excursions. Like, okay, that seems archaic and, something you would do, 70 years ago. But I get it. Every time I check into a hotel, I see a pamphlet stanchion of, Renaissance fair stuff that, I never really take, but whatever. With our platform, what we told her we would do is, we would basically assess dwell time. So if we know that you're parking or waiting in line to board the ship, because she said, the best time to sell these excursions is when you're boarding the ship, the same day you're going to leave. Everybody's all excited. They're more likely to buy. we would just send the passengers a push notification, and we would give them rich video content to engage with. So rather than looking at print media, which we know video converts at a higher rate, now you're watching basically an infomercial of people riding horses in the ocean or ziplining in the jungle, and then you give them an opportunity to purchase right then and there. So full stop. Our platform does that out of the box right now. Then when she said, well, she's comes from the gaming industry, and so she's crazy smart, crazy analytical, really good with numbers, built loyalty and rewards programs, for some of the largest gaming operations in the world. Basically said, well, if I run the numbers and I know my conversion rates, I might actually be willing to pay people to watch these videos. Could we do something like that? And all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. What a great use for blockchain to process these kind of microtransactions. It just wouldn't make sense using kind of traditional fiat, and we can do it autonomously in our platform. So that kind of becomes this idea of the value of engagement. How do I give you a cryptocurrency in order to watch a video? Because I know if I can get you to watch the video, I have a higher chance of converting you and getting you to make a purchase. Ultimately, what's called driving profitable behavior. Then once you're on the ship, let's say you're at a really nice restaurant on the ship, and they're trying to turn that table. Well, they're not going to kick you out, but let's say you spend $200 in the first hour, and then you spend another hour sitting there drinking a $5 cup of coffee. Well, that doesn't benefit the ship. That's not driving profitable behavior. So if I can identify you, so first part of what I talked about is incentivizing contextual engagement. Now I want to verify. I need to know who you are and what might be important to you. So if you've got kids, you're sitting at that table after 60 minutes, I might send you a push notification that says, free ice cream, at this, lobby bakery, if you get there in the next 30 minutes. Or if you're on a honeymoon, I might say, buy one, get one drinks at the aft deck bar. And so I'm using, the verifiability of who you are, and I'm actually buying your data in a micro transaction. That becomes FunCoin. You've said, hey, there are experiences on this ship that might be interesting to me. I don't mind if you consume my data in order to give me targeted advertising for things that are important to me. But if you do, if you use my data, I want to be compensated for it. Don't just exploit my data. Don't just surveil me. But every time my data is consumed, I want to be compensated for it. So you can extrapolate this into pretty much any industry. The big idea here is, if you can't really just go, you got to create a new model for this that puts users in control. Brands do not care about Facebook and Google. They are just the most efficient means to reach consumers. If they had a better source where it was consumers hygiening and sanitizing their own first-party data, and they had 100% consent, so user opt-in, that's the holy grail for any brand, for any media company. So we're building an ecosystem to make that process more efficient. And if you can do that, it's a home run. And so it's a big idea, it's a hard idea, but it's a very considerable idea that has material impact.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Randall. I have one last question, and then if you guys have time, I want to open it up to some of the listeners, including Fun Guy, who is a big advocate for you guys. So we're going to go to him first after my last question. But my last question has to do with financials. You've raised a lot of money now, so that's great. You got a big runway, it looks like. But the question is, at what point do you inflect to profitability? What kind of quarterly revenue number do you need to become profitable, and kind of how long do you think it might take to get there?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So I think what's interesting is the model we've always liked when you look historically is what we saw with things with Amazon and with Salesforce. The ideal solution is really not to necessarily start focusing on scaling profit just yet. What really matters is to get cash neutral, self-sufficient, fully funded, and have all the optionality for both organic growth through the core operations of the business and then opportunistic inorganic growth through mergers and acquisitions. And so we finally feel like after multiple years of being in the public markets, we kind of barely got started in the public markets. We're getting our sea legs as a public company, and then COVID hit. And really it feels like right now, I think if you ask me, Randall, our board, and most of our team, we kind of look at a few phases of Phunware. We had 10 years as a private company doing massive build out of a very complicated platform that is very non-trivial to do because everything was funded by VCs, private equity, and corporations to be a point solution, like just advertising or just marketing automation or just notification and messaging or just content or just analytics. And what we realized is that corporations and governments don't want 15 procurement relationships with 15 different companies, with 15 different logins, with 15 different architectures, of which each one works well by themselves and nothing works well together. And so the first 10 years was that build out. The 2 years after it, when we first went public, was predominantly dominated by being a new issuance, waiting to actually get the financing that we had not done as part of the IPO or immediately thereafter. And then finally with COVID, that 2 years kind of came and went. And now we're entering this really our first era of being public in the real world, fully funded to go execute. So our focus for next year is cash neutrality. And then the other part of the corporate treasury aspect of what we do is we want to turn that into a strategic weapon. So yesterday on the call, we said very specifically, you know, yes, we buy Bitcoin. Yes, we're going to continue to buy Bitcoin. Yes, we're going to continue to add to that, as we very much believe that when you're seeing a headline number of 6.2% for inflation, you might as well double or triple that to get to the actual number. Everybody can see how ridiculously expensive things are. Right now, you're losing 1% of any cash you have in terms of value every month. And that's just a disaster when you create a 25% cost of capital for people to just tread water. So Bitcoin is going to address that piece, and we're big proponents because once you get into crypto and blockchain, you can't use US dollars or euros or any other fiat currency anyway. That's not the way how blockchains work. That's not how the fees work. So Bitcoin will be an anchor for that. And then sitting on top of that anchor, you're going to see decentralized finance. And what we want to do is, so using an example and how this flows through profitability, scaling opportunities, cash preservation and expansion, and this 25% cost of capital, think importantly that if you have your checking or savings account, you can have, let's say, $100,000 in account. That 100,000 is like a melting ice cube, and you're losing 20 to 25% of its value per year. And while it's sitting there, the bank may give you, what, 10, 20, 30 basis points? Like you can't even get a 1% rate of return on the interest because rates are so low. And in many cases, it's actually negative. So that doesn't work at all. And when you realize that, you go, well, if I took that same cash, which if I look up, you know, it's not like the bank has that cash. It's just an entry of a number that's a digital representation of a dollar. Well, alternatively, I could take those same dollars, I could buy a stable coin like USDC or GUSD or any number of stable coins. And if I bought GUSD at Gemini and I go just say, instead of having a digital dollar in my bank account, I'm going to have a digital dollar that's in the form of a stable coin sitting at Gemini. And now I'm going to get 8 to 12% yield instead of 10, 20, 30 basis points. So you kind of look at that and say, like, why is anyone in the world leaving any money in a bank account? Because checking and savings gives you nothing. Money market, CDs, treasuries, they give you nothing. So why not get it deployed in a safe way in a US dollar equivalent? And then there's other kind of plays that go above and beyond that outside of stable coins. And what we're going to do is use our knowledge to make that a financial strategic weapon for our business as we're executing operations at the core.
All right, great. Thank you for all that context. Fun guy, I want to throw it over to you. If any of our listeners have any questions, hit that mic button in the bottom left. Or Jared, if you have any questions, you can go for it also.
Jared, you wanna go first, or?
I'll let you have it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Again, thanks for having me here, man. I really appreciate that. Like I said in the beginning, I'm just an average retail trader who ended up liking the company a lot, and it looked. I'm. You know, I'm a retired vet, so I sit down and I look at a lot of things, and I'm able to like really get in touch with market sentiment. Like that's my strong suit, and I feel like a lot of retail traders latched onto this after they accidentally came across it, and I believe that after doing their due diligence and a little more research, they're going to end up like me, and they have so far, and they really like the long term value and what you guys are doing. They believe you're building the future. I want to read a comment from a retail trader, just so you guys know from my perspective what people are thinking and what people are saying on along, you know, as far as the management team. This is really important, and I feel like I want to try to be a voice of the average retail trader rather than my own opinions and thoughts. So I just want to read this. They said, somebody told me to tell you, let them know that their holders have been listening and watching and reviewing and are thankful for you guys differentiating yourselves from meme stocks to a true value hold stock. And we are looking forward in the coming months and years. We appreciate their transparency as we are aware of the restrictions they face on sharing many of their projects to the world. And despite that, they provide constant updates and comments and involvement with us. And I think that's super important because, you know, AMC is great. I love the movie theaters. Totally support that company regardless of this. But they don't have the only CEO on the block that realizes that retail has power in the markets, and it's important to have a retail presence and a backing. So enough of my soapbox. I just wanted to get that out there because I wanted to try to relay that message because I thought that was very important to Phunware and the new retail presence. Did you have something, Randall?
No, first and foremost, thank you for your service, and honestly, you know, thank you for saying that. I mean, you know, to anybody on this call, you know, does not work for Phunware, not a plant. It is who he says he is, and so, you know, this is the first time, you know, you and I have had a chance to talk,
Yep.
and I couldn't, you know, I can say that kind of from my perspective. You know, you have, so, you know, for me to be involved in this company, I knew Alan back in 2009, but I wasn't full time at Phunware until about 4 years ago, and it would have taken a special company and a special person and a special team for me to do that. And I think that that's something that gets lost in today's markets. Everybody's looking at ticker symbols, they're looking at memes, and they forget about the people, you know, that make these companies great. You know, companies aren't great on their own right. It's people doing great things on behalf of a company. And you know, I got to tell you, you know, on average, you know, our C-level team has known each other for over 9 years. You know, we've been through it all together. We've seen it all together. You want people like that, you know, kind of in your foxhole when all hell is breaking loose. Our average employee tenure is 6 years. I mean, it's you know, 5.5 now because we just, you know, did this light acquisition. But you know, it's incredible trying to retain that kind of talent that we have on our team, you know, in a tech company, and that's because we're not doing something for tomorrow. You know, we're doing something for, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. This is like a monumental opportunity, and it's a big swing for the fences. And that's different than, you know, AMC or GameStop. I love, you know, retail flexing their muscle and keeping, you know, a lot of institutions that do a lot of, you know, bad things, and they do it, you know, on the backs of retail. Unfortunately, they're just really good at what they do, you know, to mess with retail traders. And, you know, GameStop was kind of a wake-up call for a lot of them. But let's be honest, GameStop's an outdated business model. AMC is a, you know, very well-established business model. We're doing something that could usher in an entirely new way of thinking about how you engage with the technology around you. You know, this is the future. And so it's really unique from, I think, a lot of the meme stocks. And, you know, I think our transparency and our, you know, accessibility as a management team is also very important. And I think a lot of people, you know, whether it's crypto or other companies, have gotten burned because, you know, management isn't available, you know, to retail traders. You know, they sit in an ivory tower, and we don't want to be that. We're trying to build something for people, and so we need to be accessible to the people we're building it for. And so I really just wanted to say thank you for your comments. It means a lot.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add, if I could, to this,
Sure.
because I think it's super important. And the reason, you know, I'm kind of sitting here scrambling between all the meetings and airports, like all of you out there matter to Randall, me, our team, and our board immensely. Trust me, I know what it's like to start from zero. My father was a mason. I learned how to do very hard manual labor as a kid. None of my parents got a chance to go to college, but I'm the youngest of three boys, but our parents taught us is, hey, we don't have a lot, but this is the greatest country in the world. You can absolutely be and do anything you want, but you better get off your ass. You better not be lazy. And, if you can be lucky instead of good, great. But if you can be both, you're going to have immense opportunities. And the communication style we've had, and Randall can attest to this because he was one of the first checks into Phunware as an angel when I was a part of the Central Texas Angel Network. Thought I was moving from California to Austin to invest, and the serial entrepreneur bug got the better of me. The operational part got the better of me. But I started meeting people in Austin, and this is back in 2008. I left California after 12 years because it was getting kind of insane to me back then. And I wanted to relocate, raise my kids, and see what was next for me in Austin. And so it was a great move. But early on, I met a lot of people who were angels, and I met a lot of people who invested. And I met one group, and honestly, this one group, they never understood what I was talking about. I said, hey, don't worry, I'm going to schedule another hour. We'll sit down. We're going to go through this from A to Z. I want you to understand everything. And they're like, we've gone through, we've heard you, we would like to make an initial investment of $1 million. And I said, well, okay, but I don't feel comfortable with that because I want you to know, what we're doing, who we're doing. And they said something I'll never forget. They just looked at me and they said, we want to invest in you because you don't sound like anyone else we meet here ever. And it sort of stunned me at the time to think like, that's really strange because I realized the difference between building a company in Austin, Texas versus when I built it in Silicon Valley and was fortunate to, sell the first several companies, one to Cisco Systems, one to Telverse Communications, which was a derivative of that business. And then we sold another one to Internet Security Systems on NASDAQ before IBM bought them. But what I realized is that, this big vision you mentioned earlier when I told you about it, you're right. I couldn't believe as a serial entrepreneur who had done very well, when I first pitched this to VCs on Sand Hill Road and everywhere else, when you say I'm going to have a Phunware ID for every human being on earth with a device touching a network, and they looked at me like I was insane. And I've done this many, many times. And I had to accept the fact that that was hard for them to bite into, that we could really do that. And the vision was too big. But, the difference between Austin and Silicon Valley on building and how you communicate with investors is just profoundly different. In Austin, you try to win the city of Austin, to win Central Texas, to win Texas, to win the Midwest, to win the United States, and then you go global. In Silicon Valley, you say, I'm going to create a new market that never existed. I'm going to dominate the market worldwide with the biggest percent possible. And then because I won the world, oh, by the way, I'm going to win the United States, the Midwest, Texas, Central Texas, and of course, Austin by default, because I already won the world. And that's a very different way to communicate. So what we did privately for 10 years, we had something called the Phunware Flash Report, and we would send out a full update once every month to every investor, whether they invested, $25,000 or $1 million or $2 million, and everyone got full open transparency. The first time we had to really stop doing that was when we signed the LOI to go public with the SPAC. And then, as you know, you start dealing with the SEC and everything has to change. So I told my investors way back when, if you ever hear me shut up, if I'm just quiet, know there's probably something good happening and there's a reason why I'm being quiet, but I just absolutely otherwise wouldn't shut up, right? So that was kind of the interesting thing that we went through. And I will tell you that when we just did the at-the-market offering, we had institutions crawling all over us, Randall especially, our CFO, and everyone wanted to suddenly, work with us. And we had a choice because we had raised some money, $25 million, real early in the year. We picked three investors. It was like $8.33 million each. And what we realized is, while that was great that we raised that $25 million, we get three investors, and really, what do they do as institutions? They flip the stock, or they really don't have their heart in it, or they're focused on the financial structure, not like who we are, what we do, why it matters, like what we're trying to change in the world. And so this time around, like Randall and I and our CFO just said, you know what, like, screw this. Like, we're not going to take any of this to Wall Street. Like, we're going to completely ignore it. We're going to go directly to retail, who I believe dive in and do deeper homework than most institutions, who tend to know more about the teams and the people, because at the end of the day, the people are all that matters, no matter what you invest in. And then they're actually have stronger diamond hands, people that actually know how to buy and hold. They know how to average in when you're getting volatility. They're trained like people who buy and hold Bitcoin. They're trained to realize, like, Wall Street is full of a bunch of crap. There is so much manipulation in trading. I could write encyclopedias about Reg SHO and naked shorting. I remember calling NASDAQ to ask them if we still had a two-sided market in America, because our biggest complaint when we first went public was, why can I hold Phunware? Why can I sell Phunware, but nobody will let me buy the stock? And I'm like, we're a NASDAQ security. What the hell is going on here? And so we appreciate, it's amazing how all the circuit breakers kick in when the stock is going up in value. It's amazing how nothing really kicks in when it's dropping in value. It's amazing when you see phantom one-share trades and programmed high-frequency trading. And so we too, our persona is, I care about people, personal sovereignty, the separation of the wealth and state, freedom, liberty, informed consent, personal choice, all of that. That's America to me. That's what Bitcoin is as well. And those are the ideals, not unsurprisingly, that 2X Army Rangers care about. And we're going to be authentic and genuine. I know there's times where I tweet things and it upsets people. I want truth. I want reality. I want people who don't lie. I'm sick of the propaganda. I'm sick of the narrative. I'm sick of big tech deciding how to censor or amplify that which helps or hurts. And the press, and we were guilty of this, we had articles written about Phunware in general and me specifically and others on my team, and it pissed us off. They were make-believe stories. Not one bit was factually accurate, but that wasn't the point. The point was to cancel. The point was to destroy. The point was to cause damage, because we had the nerve to license software and the use of our platform to Donald Trump. And that's ridiculous. That's not America. And so what you're going to find is we value retail first and foremost. We value freedom, liberty. We value independence. We value families. We value things of how to care for the people that work for us and the people that invest. Those of you who are long, we're going to kill ourselves fighting to make sure you win, because I've never had anyone not win with something that I've been involved in. And people like Randall, we don't lose. But people that are shorting us and think we're full of shit, and they've already told us we were going to, die 50 times over, and it's all a joke, and all these attacks from funds and everything else. We said, bring it. Like, you're our enemy. We're going to make it very clear, and we're here to financially blow you up. And we work through the weekends and the holidays, and today's Friday, 2 working days for Monday, and we'll make ourselves accessible to you all as much as humanly possible. And I say that having been remarried. I now have 7 kids, 6 were in college. And, it's hard when you're running a company and you watch people make up things that are very damaging. And then you're having to face your children who are reading these things and like, Dad, what is this? And I'm saying, well, we unfortunately had the nerve to license software to a group that a whole other group doesn't like. And therefore, they need to figure out how to cause damage to Phunware or cause damage to me. And you shouldn't have to go through that. And so that's going to be the battle we're going to fight. So every now and then I'll apologize in advance if I upset anybody who has a different political viewpoint or a different perspective. I care about the truth. I think all of us out there are grown up enough to handle reality and the truth. And whether that's the truth about COVID, climate, education, life, like, we love what we do for the company, but this is all about people and education and the next generation. And, we need to make better legislative, monetary, and fiscal choices. So that's going to be who we are. I'm always going to be authentic. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you agree, that's great too. But we should be able to have communications. We should be able to have disagreements. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person or I'm a bad person. That means that we need to get back to reality where everyone doesn't have to, be in the oppression Olympics and fighting with each other to see who can be more of a victim. I don't think this country is racist. I think there's problems like anything in the world that needs to be addressed. But the idea that everyone on this call is inherently racist and hate each other, I don't buy it. And I tell everyone constantly, there's red ants and black ants, and they live their life. Then sometimes people put red ants and black ants in a jar, and they're still fine. And then someone shakes up the jar, and all of the red and black ants are fighting to the death. And I tell people what you should really start asking is who put the red and black ants in the jar, and who's shaking the damn jar, and what are they doing, and how much theft is going on in broad daylight through inflation and bills and all this ridiculous spending for money we don't have while they're trying to get all of us to fight amongst ourselves. And that's just the nature of what we're going to focus on, and we're going to try to call attention to that. And we really appreciate and value each of you from the bottom of our heart.
Well, that was a fascinating exchange. And Fun Guy, I'm glad you brought that topic up. I think, Jared, we got to make a clip just from Fun Guy's question.
Yeah, I don't think I can ask a question that's going to prompt a better response than that. I was going to ask a question about like the different versions of like crypto companies. It's like, no, that is it. That is like the perfect note to end on.
Perfect note to end on. And I just want to add, it like speaks to how important sentiment really is. There's actually real value in sentiment. And when retail gets behind something, that's a source of capital, a source of cheap, less dilutive capital for companies. And that's what happened here with Phunware. So amazing, guys. I think we should end on that note because that was really great, really inspirational. And I know you only had 45 minutes anyway, Alan. So thank you so much for your time. I don't know, Randall, if you wanted to add something else here at the end.
No, that was a mic drop. I mean, that's why we're here. And I can say it because we can put him on mute. He's an amazing CEO. He put hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money into the company when we did have a cash shortage, and it was after we went public. He has done, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. A lot of times, we'll all get, memed or criticized, but having a founder who's just as passionate, just as fired up today as he was 12 years ago when I first heard the idea for Phunware. And I can attest, I'm like the one person other than Lawan that can attest to, the passion and the drive that has only gotten greater. And so, watch out world when our crypto ecosystem, you got people following a dog right now. Are you kidding me? Like, watch what happens when ours is live. We're going to blow the roof off this thing.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Follow Fun Guy. That was a great question he had. Randall will follow you on social media. Alan as well. Jared, my co-host. Everyone follow StoryTrading. We'll get the recording up on YouTube as soon as we can. And again, thank you so much, guys.